The agenda?
Yeah, the
Items, we
agenda.
didn't get any printouts or what?
I do, I have printouts.
Oh my gosh, this is good.
I have printouts. Nobody printed anything up?
Share one down here?
Sure.
Oh, hey.
I printed one
Chris.
out.
There you go.
Chris, you have to pick up your name tag. You have to do it yourself this evening.
Jazzy's here.
This is good. We'll share it.
Here, you can share with me.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
How you doing?
You guys got one
I don't
between
necessarily
you?
need one.
You got one?
I got one, yeah.
Yeah.
You guys got one?
Well, we're sharing. We're okay. Maybe Chris.
There you go. Well, you guys share, and then you guys share. Steve, Chris.
Chris.
All right. Next time I'll print more.
Are you guys trying to tell us something?
Okay, I mean,
I didn't want to kill too many trees.
am I on the agenda? Where is it?
You know, if you wanted to.
7.
Ready to go?
Whatever gets quorum, right?
Yeah, right. Good.
All right, this is the April 25th Sustainability Board meeting, City of Satellite Beach. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, that's a.
Good share.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. A little mini chair.
I got one over here.
You got one? Thanks, Chris.
Wait, what was the company one?
Scoot over a little bit, I guess. Give you.
You guys share the microphone.
Okay, so I'd first like to welcome some of the new board members.
Yeah.
Mark Boyd.
Let's see it.
This is his first meeting, and he's from Indiana-Atlantic, and tell us a little bit else about yourself.
I grew up in Indiana-Atlantic and from 0 to 15, and then I moved to Vero Beach for a few years after that, and then I left the state of Florida as a full-time resident for about 15 years. Lived in North Carolina and Georgia, Atlanta area, and Savannah, but just recently moved back with my wife and our 8.5-month-old son, and one of the things that attracted us to Satellite Beach was our desire to raise him here. I'm an attorney during the day. When I set up my interview, it's true. I've been interested in environmental issues kind of from a global concerns standpoint for a while, but was really moving back here and getting back in touch with the good things about we have going on with the environment here, but also the kind of state of the lagoon and things like that were an eye-opener, and that kind of got me motivated to get involved, and here I am.
All right, welcome. Yeah, it sounds like you'd be a good addition to our board with your legal background.
Thanks.
And we also have Steve. He's an alternate, so he'll be, I guess, sitting up here with us tonight. And is this your first meeting, or? Okay.
Yep.
All right, and Chris, you've been up here before.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're full-time now, right?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Good. I'm glad to see a lot of people up here, because it seemed like last meeting we were kind of short. I wasn't here, but so I'm guilty of not that too. But
You should feel a little guilty.
Good job, Dan. You did a good job.
Thank you. I tried.
So for new members, if you can, when you speak, just speak clearly and directly into the microphone, and then we'll get everybody on the record.
Okay.
Do we miss that? Try one at a time.
Yes.
That's the difficult part.
Yes. So we're going to start with public comment. So if anybody from our public audience wants to come up and just state your name and your address.
Carol Robichek, 560 Teakwood. I came for only one purpose, and that was to tell you folks, thank you for the help and support that you gave working on the landscaping grant. Know that there's 2 more years, we've got to keep it up and going. But having the help of Nick and David really made a difference. The rain barrels, everybody says, are wonderful.
We're not done yet. We still got a couple of things
You got
to
my
do.
long list?
Yeah.
They'll need a little bit of screening.
Yeah,
to keep the
we're going to
mosquitoes
go over
down.
there, and
Next week.
tomorrow, actually, I'll be over there. I'll have time tomorrow to go over there and
That
take
would
care
be
of it.
super.
And I'll get you the receipts I owe you, too.
You better, you don't get
I
money
know.
without the receipt.
I know.
But it's been a really interesting project, and do appreciate the time and energy. And just wanted to tell you that, and
All
make
right.
sure it was in your notes.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
Got it?
I was wondering about your plant that you brought in. Is that your plant?
Oh.
You brought a plant in.
I'm Terry Mott from Viera. Is this on? No. Terry Mott from Viera. I'm the president of a nonprofit called Florida 2064, and we promote sustainability projects in Brevard. And in honor of Earth Day, we wanted to present your board with this beautiful native fringe tree for your stellar leadership in getting the rest of us sustainable.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We might have a place for that over by the community garden or,
I was thinking we could put it in the subtle bioswale. Oh, I think you forgot your information. I don't know if we got enough room. We got enough room on the day?
Yeah, we got room here.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Oh, this is fantastic. Thank you, Terry.
What kind of tree is it again? Listed species.
how big does it get?
Very big.
Very big?
We'll put it at the community garden.
Yeah.
Community garden.
Okay. Awesome. I love big trees.
Fairly diffuse habit. We have one in our backyard. It's maybe 20 now.
Okay.
Hi there,
great.
my name is Linda Palmisano. I live here in Satellite Beach, and I have spoken twice at the City of Melbourne City Council meetings about the topic of water fluoridation. My husband and I both spoke last night, but we've begun to do research, and I have spoken with the city manager here into the effects of water runoff from the municipal water system into the Indian River Lagoon. The fluoride probably is having adverse effects, and we were, I don't know why, but it circled back around to the 22 million gallon dump that happened during Irma. And yes, that was raw sewage and human waste, but it was also, floating amongst 22 million gallons of municipal water. And of course, water has chloramine and other, things that aren't great to go into the lagoon, but specifically right now, we've been fighting fluoride. I had told the mayor and the council about the adverse health effects, and there's a lot of information on the internet. One of the best sources is a website called fluoridealert.org. It's the Fluoride Action Network. But now we're beginning to look into even the reclaimed water that's used. It does not, I don't believe, in the reclaim process go through reverse osmosis, which would be necessary. And so that reclaimed water is being put back into, I understand, golf courses and things of that nature. And when beachside, when they flush the fire hydrants, or we, pressure wash the driveway or wash a car, all that municipal water is going into the storm sewer system, which goes into our canals and effectively into the lagoon area. So,
We actually have an agenda item.
Yeah, I put that
To
on the
address
agenda.
that,
I've talked with Courtney about what you're talking about.
Courtney's
This is-
secretary had called me because I had an appointment with her and had sat and talked with her about a lot of different concerns, one being environmental, and her secretary called today and said that I might want to come to this meeting.
Yeah, let's, if you could just hold off until we
Okay.
get to that agenda item,
Okay.
we'll talk to that.
Okay,
in-
thank you.
In some more detail.
Thank you.
Okay, any more public comment?
All right, so I'm Karen Wade from Rethink Energy, and we have Jamie here. And
What was the name of your organization?
Karen Wade.
No, your organization.
Oh, Rethink Energy,
Rethink Energy.
the Brevard chapter.
Nice.
Yeah. So what we want to do here is kind of introduce a project, a task that we just recently started, really more of a campaign, which is a no single plastic use campaign. So we started this campaign, and we have 3 task forces that are looking at what we can do to reduce the use of plastic. And we've come up with a couple of things that we want to start running by environmental sustainability boards across the county to get you guys educated on as this moves forward. A couple of things. One very interesting point is the fact that cities can ban the use of plastic straws. That is not covered by the state ban. well,
Only
aside from
plastic.
education of telling people not to use straws at all, or to use. Right,
Okay.
so there are 3 cities that have banned them so far: Fort Myers, Marco Island, and Sunrise. I'm working with the contact in Jupiter, who is working there to get the city to ban. St. Petersburg is also looking to put in a ban. That's where we want to take this eventually. We're just starting our campaign now. This is going to be a long road, but that's where we want to go. We know that this is something legally the cities can do. They can ban plastic straws. Before we get that far, we are going to start putting the task forces together to start educating consumers and businesses and the public of what the damage that straws are doing and why this is something we would want to do. That way, when it got to that point, you guys would have the full support of your community to do that. But we wanted to bring that up because that is news to most people, the fact that we can actually ban plastic straws. As long as you're very specific about plastic straws, they can be banned eventually. Another thing that we also want to bring up is the fact that we're recently made contact with the owner of a company down in Miami who provides environmentally friendly restaurant supplies. What's good about that is that they're interested in working with me to build a co-op to get all our restaurants to order together so we can bring the prices down. Because what we're finding, the biggest obstacle to getting restaurants to switching from styrofoam to environmentally friendly containers is price. That's pretty much it. So we're looking to build a co-op that we can use quantity pricing to bring the prices down, and they're interested in doing that and working with us on that and bring that down. So we're going to start working with the restaurants in the area so we can build that co-op. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but the KBB has a program called Litter
Yes.
Corner. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, we are. We have been. We were also working with them. There's also a couple other programs, but we're also working with Surfrider on the ocean-friendly restaurants. So we're all kind of forming a coalition
Okay.
to do that. But yes, we're all kind of working.
So
working together.
straws are just part of what you're targeting. Is there any particular reason why that type of plastic is?
Well, part of the reason with the straws, with the single-use straws, we are banned from actually banning these items. The preemption says we're not allowed to do styrofoam, plastic bags.
But straws we can.
But straws are allowed. And
Okay.
we just found that out this week. So I do have the ordinances from the 3 cities that have already done it for y'all if you wanted to see it. But now we know this is possible. And of course, they're not recyclable. 500 million a day of these in the United States, they go into the trash, they go into the ocean. They are not recyclable. So it's kind of a gateway drug, if you will, into
it's an
actually
entry
being
point.
able to move on to other things.
I mean,
Yeah.
approaching restaurants, approaching businesses and people with everything, saying, you got to stop the straws, stop the styrofoam, stop the paper, the cups, all that. The styrofoam cups is overwhelming. So straw is an entry point of education for the regular consumers and also for businesses. So that's where everybody's pretty much. If you look out there right now, straws is the entry point for a lot of groups that are starting to do this.
So we actually have an agenda item to talk about straws too.
I didn't realize that.
But were you asked?
We haven't seen the agenda.
Yeah, we didn't get any copies.
I can make more copies.
Well, okay, you're just informing us.
Yeah, I don't have a problem.
We got too many people.
It's pretty funny.
Dave, can I put something on the record real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
Just, I'm obviously new at this. This is my first meeting. We met at the Earth Day event on Sunday, and I definitely believe in the long-term goal of trying to eradicate, single-use plastic straws in particular. I think how we get from here to there is a topic for discussion. But in light of that, I basically had signed up to join on reflection on that. I think that I'd like to maintain my independence, so I basically disjoined before I actively did anything, but I just feel like I should tell everyone that. I let Julie know that. She didn't do it as a conflict, but if you guys want me to not be involved in the discussion in light of that, I defer to whatever your thoughts are on it. Like I said, I'm definitely in favor of the long-term goal of trying to eradicate single-use plastic, but how we get from here to there, I think, is a discussion I'd like to be involved in as an independent voice.
Did you put it on as an agenda?
No, I didn't. We just met at the Earth Day event, like I said.
Did you talk to Courtney, or
No.
It's been on there?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we talked about it last month.
Oh, okay.
Nick and I have been working on it.
Oh, that's funny.
Chris
Okay, I didn't even know.
also
Okay, well,
and
let's-
work on.
So I kind of put two and two together.
Let's come back to
Yeah.
this.
All right.
Yeah.
Just so that, our agenda, so we don't have to move our agenda items around. But it's great, we have representatives from Surfrider here, so we should be able to have a good discussion on this.
And do you think, is that appropriate, just that I brought that out? And is that,
Yeah, that's fine.
is that cool? Okay.
Yeah, there's no conflict if you can remember some other organization.
Okay.
We got another public comment.
Okay. One more public comment?
Rodney Smith, 265 South Robert Way. And so Nick and Nick, we had a meeting with our manager of Publix. You talked to Nick and Nick about it?
Which is the other Nick?
Nick.
Oh, okay.
Well,
So-
Nicholas.
So you're a new member too?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, this is my second meeting. The last meeting,
Oh, it's your second meeting. Okay, so you're already introduced. Okay.
while I was gone. Right.
Welcome, okay.
So do you want to fill them in? As a staff report, I was going to cover a little bit of it during that.
We actually have an agenda item for that.
So Nicholas and I go over there yesterday. And,
Well, to the community garden yesterday.
Yeah.
And our meeting was about 2 weeks ago.
yeah, and I want to suggest that, and you do good, Chris Reed, and Nicholas, or Nick, our friend. Right. You do good on placing the compost, but I want to suggest that either 3 or 4 places we get compost, or make it for the accessible for the gardeners, okay? And I want, and
At the community garden you're talking about?
yes, and it needs full sun, okay?
The compost does?
Yes.
Why
Or
To be most effective. And
Yes.
where it's placed,
Yes.
it's right underneath a bunch of, a good bit of shade, and it's not far from the garden, but, it could be placed
Yeah.
more strategically. Or another could be added.
Nick, go ahead.
So Rodney and I went there. Rodney took the time to be honest with you, it was my first time at the community garden. Absolutely gorgeous. Ate some of the fruit right out of the garden, checked out the compost, and yeah, it was great. There is only one compost there, though, and I think it would be, if we can come up with a game plan as far as kind of adding a few others, and the way as you guys all know, the different plots are positioned, I think having a more centralized plot right there would kind of, bring it all together and, just benefit the whole scene. So Rodney had mentioned that to me, and also, the sunlight and the different positionings, and he had mentioned a couple other, we had recognized a couple other locations as far as, additional composts. And with all the compost material we'll soon be getting from Publix, I think those additional bins or, containers would go over well, so.
And again, I'll talk about this in more detail during the staff report as well.
Got it.
And then, what are you going to do with the native plants? Staff report. So it includes the swell at the library? In the future. Yeah. Okay, those are already spoken for. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
Thanks, Rodney. And I totally agree with you about the compost. For my yard in Satellite Beach, what I do during March when all the oak trees are dropping their leaves, I go around on my trailer and I collect bags and bags and bags of oak leaves and dump them all over my yard. I found a place that had like 70 bags already bagged up, and I got one trailer load, and I was going to get some, and I was going to take one load to the community garden. When I got there, they were all gone. So the city must have picked them up. Yeah, but I was bummed because oak leaves are great for starting plants, just for anything, for mulching beds. It decomposes quickly. It's very rich soil. A lot of nurseries that I know, like small nurseries, will go out, do the same thing that I do, and that's what they use rather than buying potting soil or mushroom compost or anything like that. But yeah, there's options we can explore. There's definitely compost available from the landfill. I don't know how great it is right now. It kind of varies, but we can look into maybe getting some of that trucked over here. We actually have a lot of really good soil that we just dug out of the swale. It's dense, but it's
healthy, toxic.
Toxic, yeah. Could be.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I can assure you.
That it's toxic, yeah.
Because of all the yard.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yes.
Unless it's been acted upon.
It is toxic.
Yeah. We got to figure out something to do with it. Maybe we'll make a mountain bike park out of it.
Ah!
I haven't forgot about that idea.
You technically got the
That's
okay already,
for
too.
another meeting. Okay, so any more public comment?
Give him the okay.
All right, staff report?
All right. So, start staff report at 7:25.
So if you don't know, Nick is our environmental programs coordinator, and he assists us with tons and tons of things.
I'm also
And you will see what he's...
Yeah, today he's being Julie, though.
He's also, yeah, he's got multiple...
So since Julie's not here, I'm going to skip around my staff report a little bit. No, I'm just kidding. I'll try to keep it as succinct as possible. I'll start off with some of the topics already mentioned. Rodney had mentioned the meeting with Publix. Nick and myself went. That was Rodney and Dave, the manager of Publix, who is very receptive to the idea of working with the city to give us access to the organic matter generated by Publix that would go unused. We're talking about the loose vegetable first. Nothing in bags, I think. It was really focused on the loose vegetable, so
Nothing in bags.
old bananas, old apples, peppers, lettuces, tomatoes, anything, onions, potatoes, anything that is in the section that's just open that would go bad. Typically, they would just throw that away because their distributor that they were previously working with, the contract has lapsed and it hasn't been renewed. So if we stepped in and created a relationship with Publix, which they're open to based on that conversation, we could pick up that waste if we had the right infrastructure in place. I think Nick volunteered
Absolutely.
to drive his truck to pick up the material from Publix, and then we would need a place to put it. And as Rodney put, the location of the current compost isn't really as functional as possible. It was more temporary than permanent, but the idea would be to find a place where we could really make full use of that material. We would need enough space, so I'm looking into finding that space. Maybe multiple small spaces, maybe some at the community garden, maybe some with residents that want to be involved in a composting program, maybe some businesses. I talked to Dekine, and Dekine's manager was on board with maybe recycling their carrots and the things that they produce on site, because Dekine's has that old putt-putt golf course that got turned into the movie area, but there's a lot of space back in there. Maybe they'd be in for creating a small composting area as well. So that conversation is in the beginning stages, but it looks like there's a lot going on. We'll continue to do that.
Okay.
What's
And
the,
Holy Name was the one,
There.
so Nick, would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, they're on board. I haven't got the official okay yet, but I've got a lot of positive feedback, and they have more space in the back than, I don't want to say that they know what to do with, but they have plenty of space, and they are more than happy to support our initiative there, so.
And that'd be full sun.
Yes, right.
And then we would need to
Right.
get some kind of a team together, whether ad hoc or separate, to churn the compost.
Yes.
Because it does take time and work.
And Rodney and I,
And you have to add brown material to make it
And
work.
I think that we'll get enough of that from the palm fronds,
Right.
the sable palms, that Public Works collects, along with any leaf litter like you talked about. I think we work with Public Works to give them a location to bring that to. We can probably make that transition smooth, I hope. So it's a conversation to have with Public Works.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, there's the palm fronds right there from all the,
Yeah.
from all the
A lot of palm
Bismarckians.
fronds in the
That
city.
would work.
Can we, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
can we utilize other city property that's not being used right now? Like that,
If we had some.
what about the area where the fire department's gonna go? Like, we have that land now, right?
Well, yes, so once that's finished construction on, we'll know more about how we could utilize that land. But until then, it wouldn't be right to set up something in that location that we would then have to relocate within a small window. I love that location, and I think we should revisit this once that's done, because it'll be right next to Publix.
Right.
And it would give us, especially if Public Works is gonna be there, it would give us the opportunity to create a small station. And I think Dave was kind of on board with the idea of it being this pickup drop-off slash kind of storage area right there where those two properties kind of meet. And then getting the Laura's Junior Sustainability Board involved next year to help do that kind of maintenance on that. So it's an ongoing process. I'm gonna say at least a year until we see some really concrete, movement with that property. I think in the meantime, I like the Holy Name angle, and we can keep using that. Even if we have both, I think we'll eventually need both anyway, especially if we get a home composting program going like they have in Orlando.
I would think that would be like phase two. Because most people, I mean, I compost all my stuff from in my yard, but, so the other thing you're gonna need, or the other thing that may be a problem that I see is rodents. So you can't just throw it in a big pile out there, because you're just gonna attract a bunch of all kinds of critters. So you're gonna need and you're also gonna need something to turn it.
Yeah,
Like-
so the Public Works would be great if it was right next door. So we
Yeah.
can't exactly drive our machinery down to Holy Name.
So that might be something that you can talk to Alan or
Yeah.
about, if they have, do they have a little bobcat or something that has like a fork?
Skid steer.
A skid steer? Where do they keep that? Just wondering.
By Long August in the military looking hangar thing over there.
Do they use it very much?
That's what we use to get all the material out of DeSoto.
It'd be nice if we could relocate it over to the community garden.
They can store it by the baseball field temporarily. It's just the juggling of machinery and usage for them is really tight right now.
Do they have a garage over there?
It's a dual garage that they can
Really?
use, yeah. Which is what they did for me one night when I needed to get out.
That would be something to pursue, because
Yeah.
that could be very useful.
And also, once we finish the DeSoto Pond project, there may be space on the DeSoto's Pond project to kind of maybe put a little composting area between the pond and the baseball field. I don't know exactly what that's going to entail, but that might be a conversation to have after that facility is constructed and polished, and we can kind of look at that.
how much material do you expect?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Nick, you got a ballpark on that?
I don't, but it sounds like more almost than we can handle. A lot
That's-
more than I thought.
Yeah, it's more than a home, obviously.
Right.
It sounds to me like it's approaching industrial scale, but not quite. And for that reason, those 2 acres up by the old post office are really appealing. You're not burning a whole lot of fuel, running stuff all over the place. And I believe that little skid steer has a trailer so that it isn't that you've got to drive it clunk, 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 clunk,
Right.
all up the streets. And you don't have to turn it every day. Now, the rodents and things could be an issue, but again, that's a commercial area. I believe it's zoned commercial. And so something like that would certainly be more acceptable there than it would be in a residential neighborhood. And I would think that's a primary place because you could put a lot of throughput. I'm not saying fill the whole 2 acres, but, and you can get it started there, get the kinks worked out and everything, and it's going to be, I'll bet you 5 years before they break ground up there to build anything.
So you're talking about the old parking lot
The parking lot for the
next to
old,
the old post office?
yeah,
So in the meantime, let's utilize the facility to the most of its capabilities.
yeah.
All right.
You're reducing travel time and everything, and then, yes, you get finished product, then you move the finished product to where you want it.
There's a lot of needs for compost throughout the
Okay.
city.
Well, we'll make that another agenda item to follow up on this. And the next meeting, and just kind of follow up. Nick, you want to continue to work with me on that?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, that's the first thing on my staff report. The second thing on the staff report, I think what we'll do is we'll talk about the straws, because I know that was a big one that we talked about last time, but that'll come back during the regular agenda.
Why don't you just table that?
We'll table that, let's talk about that. I'll just talk a little bit about the work day that we had and the Earth Day event that we had. Those went off very well. We had FIT, a number of volunteers, community support. Mark came out, Chris came out, Dylan was there videoing. So if you didn't get to see the video,
We like.
Oh, yeah.
Guys, you neighbor both involved, yes. But the idea was that, and Steve, you were at the Earth Day event, yes? Yep.
Oh, honestly.
Yeah, everybody was really involved, as much as they could.
Anybody else want to be recognized?
Dave Floyd was also there.
Nice.
Everybody was also there that came. Thank everybody for being there. There was a lot of people involved as part of this event. So we planted roughly 2,000 to 3,000 plants. I'm not exactly sure how many we planted,
That was
but
incredible.
we planted enough to say that we got a sizable portion of the first part of the project completed. Enough to where Public Works can now look at it, and Alan can kind of give me some feedback, and we can go and fill in some of the gaps. And then we're going to move on to the ponds next to the library. And those are going to be the next areas to be planted. We need to, I need to, coordinate with other volunteers. We'll do another work day. We'll do it again, probably 2 or 3 more times.
So the ponds right next to the skate park?
Yeah, not the big main one, but the 2 small ones as you drive through the wind of the road there off of Jamaica.
Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about.
We had the event over the weekend.
Where?
The Rodney, what was the
Young
name?
Kids on Fishing?
Yes, Young Kids on Fishing.
So that's the one pond, and then that's the
You're
main one.
talking about
The 2 other ponds.
just east.
North.
North.
Are they north?
Yeah.
Okay.
When you're driving into the
Oh,
library.
okay, okay. I
So
took it over.
before you get to the library?
Before, yeah, and
Okay.
then those will be done in a very similar style to the
Wow, that'd be cool.
swale. Yeah, so there'll be more mangroves and grasses focused on that one, less beautification, more function for those, just because they're not dead center in the city for visibility. But the good news is that when it did rain, the area did fill, and then it drained. And it filled, and it drained, and filled, and drained about 3, 4, 5, 6 times over the course of the rainy weekend.
Did it fill enough to go
It
into
filled
the?
just the right amount, so that it didn't overflow into the street, and it allowed for more volume in the swale itself. Kept it out of the street, which was nice, allowed for more fill, and then it,
Did it even go down into the culvert?
no, it actually ponded, and then went down to the culvert. So it's really, it's what it's supposed to do.
Well, it has to go up above. The culverts are,
Well,
the drain is higher.
right, but then
So-
it ponded and then it trickled in, it did the percolation, which is what we want.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I mean, some of it did overflow into the culvert, yeah, but then it ponded out, and when ponded out, went down.
Cool.
So that was the planting day, that went really well, and then the Earth Day event went really well too, rain or shine, we still had about 100 people show up, which was good. News 13 came out, again,
Were we on the news?
we were on the news,
Really?
yeah.
That's pretty cool.
They talked about Earth Day, and the questions from News 13 will just say are rather leading at times, and I feel that I did a pretty good job of not getting swayed to say anything inappropriate on one way or another. And I tried to focus most of my conversation on leading by example, because I feel like that's what our board is about. So we lead by example by picking up that piece of trash, by planting that extra plant, and that's kind of the whole idea behind the sustainability thing. And hopefully next year we'll do it again. We may combine the Earth Day event with another event, try to get a bigger thing. Rethink Energy was there, and next time hopefully we'll have Anglers for Conservation there as well. They were double booked, triple booked probably at that day, as was Surf Rider and everybody else. Earth Day is this kind of time when everybody's really, really busy. So again, big thanks to everyone involved. That went really well.
Pizza eating contest was fun.
Pizza eating contest was
I was
fun.
wondering if anyone was going to mention
Thank
it.
you, Dave. Yeah. An unknown horse came into the race.
I wasn't even gonna.
Won by a nose.
But then I got hungry and I was like, $10. All right.
And all for good cause. I think we raised over $250 for Really for Life that day, which was really nice. We raised some money for Surf Rider, and we raised some money for Anglers for Conservation for the lagoon sign. We raised $30 for them as well, which thanks to a generous donation from an unnamed individual. But yeah, so that's most of my staff report is that. Finishing up a lot of the reporting for those projects and the grants. That's it, besides from the straws and the public's stuff for right now.
Okay, thanks, Nick.
Yeah.
So our next, do we have any public comment on his staff updates? Okay. Moving on, we want to discuss, take action on native landscaping. So who wants to start this? Anybody?
So I will talk a little bit about this as staff. It was mentioned that the beautification board has created the new criteria for the yard of the month, and I know that I presented that previously and talked about it. I just wanted to kind of remind everybody that that exists, and that when people are doing the yard of the month program, that now in order to be selected for a yard of the month, the beautification board has some criteria that we've designed to promote native plants, permeability, rain barrels, rain sensors, and all the things that they're supposed to have as residents. You have to have a rain sensor. To kind of get away from the less functional landscapes and towards more of a beautiful and functional landscape as the goal of the yard of the month. We did get sponsored by Sun Harbor, I believe. We got sponsored for the first month of January, and I haven't heard back from them yet. I need to double back with them on that, but that's...
Well, what is that?
$25 to whoever gets selected.
Okay, for yard of the month.
In some form of a product, whether it's
hopefully not fertilizer.
An all-natural fertilizer, or a substitute thereof, or plants, or natural.
Not funding fertilizer.
Right.
So out of the plants that you've got, how many plants left?
Probably somewhere over 4,500.
Okay. Is there any way? I mean, you might be tied by your grant and what you're required to do, but is there any way that we could use some of those to propagate, or maybe if we just plant them in a certain area, later we could come and like split the grasses and start?
Oh, yeah. So once that area gets established, I spoke, and it's part of the grant, actually I wrote it in there that way, that two things are going to happen. That Aquatic Plants of Florida has access to the seed source so they can reseed, which is what gives us a cheaper cost of purchasing from Aquatic Plants of Florida. And we will also be allowed to go in there and collect seed ourselves and produce from seed anything that we want, as well as split grasses that get too thick. So the maintenance of the swale is so that it remains functional and aesthetically pleasing. So we get to cull the grasses or native plants to make sure that they function properly. So that means reducing maintenance, so if the dune sunflower does what it typically does and overgrows, we can go in there and take some of it out because it's going to reseed, and you're going to have hundreds of little baby dune sunflowers out there come, next year. We can go out there and get some of those little guys and put them in pots and create what Chris wanted to do, which is that native garden, where I think the stand that was talked about previously that wouldn't be good for our garden will be great for growing native plants in, because you're not going to eat them, but they're high in nutrients because of all the, runoff.
Mm-hmm.
So they would
We've got to do something with that dirt.
Heavy organic matter, high nutrient content soils. We could then use it in that way. So we're going to have all these pots left over from the project. I think we should just go fill them all with dirt and put them in that area that we talked about in front of the racquetball court wall, and we'll grow native plants there.
Yeah, that'd be a great idea. That was Chris's idea?
We talked about that a couple meetings
Yeah, I
ago.
like that. And we, just to let you know, we've been talking to Nick, and so we have a community garden right now, which is mostly just garden beds. But there is a shade house where we're also growing some native plants, but we want to kind of step that up to where we have a city garden, where we have native plants available to either give to people or use throughout the city, because, you know, the city needs to lead by example as well. We've got a lot of grassy areas that we need to replant, and we have started that process, but we need to accelerate it, or it's just going to take forever. But it's a huge undertaking. I mean, just putting those 2,500 plants in,
All day.
that's a lot of labor.
50-something volunteers.
Yeah.
So when are we looking at doing that?
So, in my mind, I would like to see it happen, starting with as soon as we can to get the soil from the DeSoto location where it currently is, potted and moved over to where the garden is. And then as the seed starts being produced, we just grab a handful and throw them into the buckets and propagate them that way as soon as possible next season.
Okay.
But I think that setting the infrastructure up can happen within the next 2 months before the summer, and then after the summer is over, everything will start doing its seeding, and we can go ahead and grab a lot of the seed from not only the community garden and the shade house, but also from the newly planted areas as well.
One of the things that we're kind of missing that I'm a big advocate of is oak trees, or trees in general, because we have a lot of like ground cover, but we don't have any large canopy trees. And there's a lot of places in the city that we could put those. But what would be the easiest way? Because I have a really good source for oak trees right now. Green's Nursery that was.
Go to the Melbourne Fruit Club Friday and Saturday this week. They're having a huge sale. They do it only once a year. It's the Florida Fruit Club.
Mm-hmm.
It's on, it's near.
Broad Tropical Fruit Club.
Yeah, it's near Holmes Regional. So go out and buy some trees.
Is it the
Put
Melbourne
them in your yard.
Is it the Melbourne Auditorium? Is that where they're?
Melbourne Auditorium.
Yeah.
They only do it one time a year.
Yeah.
And it's this Saturday. You have to go to it. It's unbelievable.
And if you go tomorrow night, right? Is that the meeting?
Tomorrow night, Thursday at 7 o'clock at the
Front Street Park.
Front Street Park.
Yeah, you
Right.
can go there, and you might even be able to join. And if you join and you're a member, you can go on Friday, which is the pre-sale in the afternoon, and you can
Cherry pick.
hand pick the stuff that'll be gone by Saturday.
Dave, Matt also had.
I was just a quick question. What action are we gearing up to take?
Five.
I guess to establish a city garden would be what I would suggest. If somebody wants to make a motion, or you know, we can talk about Chris's idea. I don't know if we need a motion for that, but
So that would,
definitely
I think a motion.
get
motion.
input on it.
okay, that would make it a city garden if we added that little
To add
extension.
on to the community garden in the fashion that was
Okay.
discussed.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I motion to add on a little section to make it a proper city garden. What was that?
I'll second, yeah.
Second. Motion by Chris, second by Mark.
Motion.
Is there going to be cost to this?
As staff, I'll look into the costs associated and present it to the board next meeting. Okay. Great, now the roll call comes.
Okay, so any public,
Hold on.
jumped ahead.
Any public comment before we vote?
And we're voting for,
The creation of an addition to the existing community garden to create a native garden.
Native
alongside.
city garden.
but we're not sure what the cost of that to the city would be.
Right.
So Frank, I mean, Nick,
Nick, let me be frank.
So you say 6,000 native plants?
Total?
Yes.
8,550.
But,
Give or take 2,000.
okay, yeah, okay. So why doesn't the board take James, my son, and mine, and suggestion and make, and John, you know what I'm talking about. The east side of the
Sports park.
northeast.
Yeah, northeast quadrant of the sports park, the swale.
Yeah, and.
But
Oh, I forgot to mention that during my staff report, that's right. Rodney, you want me to continue?
Yes.
Okay, so I did as an additional staff report item, thank you, Rodney. I forgot to mention that I met with Rodney at the library and walked the eastern boundary swale that runs north and south. That actually goes towards the ponds that we're going to plant as part of the grant currently. The swale has grown with grasses and looks like it's being managed in one way or another. It could be native.
Roundup, and it's not part of the city philosophy to use Roundup, but I understand.
Who owns that land?
We do. County, actually. It's county maintenance. Yeah, that's the issue.
That's the
no,
issue.
Do we own that
the
land?
city owns all but the 5 acres.
Is it
The library's on, the northern boundary is basically the northern edge of the parking lot on the north side, and the south boundary goes into the scrub a bit, but it's from the road east to the fence.
So it is city property then?
No, that is library property.
That is library
The rest of
property.
35 acres is city property.
Right. So we would have to partner with them.
No, not to do the part of the swale that's south of the bicycle trail,
Okay. Okay.
or north of it.
North of it,
Yeah, south of the little bicycle
So
trail.
I am going to continue looking at this. I think John, you want to help look into that with me a little bit? To
Yeah, we
continue
can.
on his idea?
Yeah, we can.
So the idea is to plant that out with
To do that very
natives,
similar to the way that we did DeSoto.
and then somehow request that the county doesn't come and spray Roundup on our natives.
Right, right. So there's definitely a long-term conversation that has to
The
happen.
city does it.
The city does it.
The library has a lawn care contract for their 5 acres. But they don't mess with the city's 35 acres.
So Public Works is spraying Roundup over there?
I'll have to look into it to find out for sure. And I'll report back with the official report at the next meeting.
Okay. All right, that sounds good. Thanks for bringing that up, Rodney. That's
Before we get off
a
of
good idea.
the staff report, you mentioned that you need to have rain sensor to be eligible for the,
It's a point. You gain a bonus point in the yes column.
what if you don't need to irrigate at all? That should be 2 bonus points.
You do get 2 bonus points.
Okay.
You do get a bonus point for having the rain sensor and rain barrel and permeable pavement and zero escaping, each one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need to take a vote, right?
On
The native landscaping?
the native landscaping. So hearing the public comment, bring it back around, calling roll. We'll start with,
Wait, this is the city garden.
this is the city garden vote.
Yeah.
Nick Emberdoin,
Yes, sir, present.
Christopher Reed.
Here.
Wait, who made the motion?
Tonight.
You made the motion, who made the second?
I did.
Okay, so Nick, Dave?
It's like an order.
Yes.
Yes. All right, and we got Steven?
Yes.
Matt?
No.
And then we go to who made the second? Mark?
I vote yes.
And then who made the motion?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Fergus doesn't get a
Oh,
vote?
sorry, Fergus. Sorry.
Okay, this is not his normal job.
Yes. John, yes, okay. Sorry about that. Please apologize, I'm sorry about that. And then Chair.
Yes.
Okay. So, 7-1.
The idea was,
Motion passes, right? Majority vote, is that how that works? Yeah?
yes.
Okay. Motion passes to create a city garden as an addition to the existing community garden. Okay. Sorry, Dylan.
Okay, moving on to the next agenda item. We're going to talk about the reduction of straws in restaurants. So, where do we want to start with this?
I can start.
Jazzy or Chris?
Do you want to start or you want me to start?
I can start.
Go ahead.
I am working with Nick and Jazzy mainly on the coasters. I really think that's a great focal point to put on the table and make a
Yeah, did you
create
guys
a
hear about
discussion.
this idea? There's the last meeting, from what I understand.
Right, we had,
And
did you bring those coasters in?
yeah, it
Yes.
was Warren. Or,
They brought in some coasters that were, what's the slogan on there? Skip the straw. Skip the straw. And we discussed ways that we can incorporate that in our community here and distribute it in town. So I've been meeting with Nick. We've been pretty good about meeting every week about that issue and other issues. On Thursdays we meet. And we've called to various companies to get prices for the coasters. We've looked at certain shapes that we can get these coasters in, maybe a turtle shape with the slogan on top of it. And this past week, when we were talking, Nick actually did find out that there are a lot of other people trying to do the same type of campaign. So Nick is actually going to round all of these sources up, and we're going to have a big discussion about the coasters moving forward. Who are those groups again?
So we have the zoo, the county, anglers, Surfrider, Rethink Energy, KBB, and a number of others that have reached out. So I was hoping that you might make a motion to create a workshop to do that.
Oh, great.
The straw poll?
That would be a good idea.
It would co-stop to a straw poll, yes.
So rather than banning or doing a ban, I know the city council prefers that we try to encourage before we go to banning. So I think this is a good direction we're taking.
Right.
And a workshop definitely sounds like the right way to go.
So I, Christopher Reed, would like to motion to create a workshop within the community to kind of round everybody around the same ideas and principles on this coaster idea, and even was Jazzy's portion in there?
Conversation as well.
Yep, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and you guys are more than welcome to attend and bring your ideas, because it sounds like you have a lot of really good ideas.
A lot of those groups already, so it'll be great. We actually were going to do that. We're going to do
Now,
Coalition.
all those groups of places. This is great, exactly what we're going to do, so.
Sweet.
So we already have Long Doggers as a restaurant.
Papagallos, just my paper.
Papagallos, okay. The big challenges are probably going to be McDonald's.
They, I heard, made some progress?
United Kingdom, they just, McDonald's and, so if it comes, west of, they can do it there, they can do it here. Those were saying that we were gonna start talking to them, so they can do it there, they can do it here.
But yeah, I think if we have multiple groups involved now, because I've approached, just on my own, I've approached like Little Dos Amigos and just said, hey, have you guys, I've talked to the owner, said, hey, have you guys thought about going to, disposable takeout containers? And I didn't actually talk to him about the straws, and I mentioned KBB Litter Quitter, but it didn't seem to go anywhere. But now if we have more people, and whenever you go to any of these establishments, it's always a good idea to just, before they even bring you a drink, just mention to them that, please don't bring me a straw. And if a lot of people do that, then they'll start thinking, and,
far as the coasters go, what's the material and cost associated with
That's a good point. I mean, you may want to do those details in the workshop rather than trying to discuss that here tonight.
We did have some numbers that we won't bring in the workshop.
Okay.
Also, I mean, and we'll bring up in the workshop, but the zoo is also doing coasters, and they're getting them, I think they're being donated, or they're being sponsored by Budweiser. That would be good too. This workshop brings that information forward. There's a lot of, they're also doing coasters, they're doing table umbrellas, table tops and table umbrellas, and we actually had a meeting with them, and then they kind of needed to finish off the project, so we're kind of redesigning the project, and then once that project was done, we're all going to get together. So this workshop might come just in time for them to do that. So we've actually been waiting to hear from them to get the coalition. We met, about 2 months ago with them? Yeah. So they have, Aardvark is providing turtle straws for them. So when they reach a restaurant, they're going to give them first weeks of straws free. So they have a lot of programs in place that we all can put in this workshop will be great to kind of communicate.
But they don't have it up and running yet with ABB, and they're narrowing it down now. But they tested a ton of paper straws in their turtle tanks, and these Aardvark brands are the ones that actually break down in the turtle tank. And I think they're going to, of course, provide the first week, but then also the sales from these straws are going to go to their turtle program. So it's not all up and running yet. We're speaking about the program that doesn't yet exist. What folks at KBB and the zoo are doing it.
You said that,
They have sponsors and stuff, so.
that Budweiser's sponsoring it?
I think that's what it was, but they're still working the details out.
Well, the thing is that if the zoo could get Budweiser, it's not a small company, that all you have to hit
Can you come up to the
is...
microphone if you want to speak, just so that we can...
All you have to hit is Coca-Cola and Pepsi, and you've got almost all the fast food restaurants. That's who supplies the soda. So whoever, if they were successful getting Budweiser, to find how they managed to do that and maybe apply the same principle to those two companies, and you've just cracked a huge market.
The folks over in St. Pete just started their campaign, and they're doing it voluntary first, and they're going to plan on moving on to the ordinance. But I think it's Gina that's over there. I spoke to her. The problem is getting McDonald's and getting Subway and getting 7-Eleven and getting all those places. So you can get Long Doggers, you can get Cantina, you can get these places that are more local, but it's harder to get the bigger places to voluntarily do it.
Yeah, that's my point.
Right.
Is if you can get the two soda suppliers to say, as part of our program, because they're competitors, you know, you can't walk into a restaurant and say, I'd like a thing of Pepsi and I'd like a thing of Coke. You get one or the other. And so if you can get the supplier of the soda, which is what the straws are used for, to go online and, let's say, sponsor turtle-friendly straws or however they do it, then you've basically forced the chain, the restaurant chain,
That's probably a good
to comply.
long-term.
Yeah,
You know,
long-term.
I don't
That
think
doesn't
that's
happen
gonna be
next
in
week.
Next week or month, but at least getting started with, you know, once KBB and the zoo gets their program running, and then I think Lori's already got something going on. Surf Rider just kicked off a single-use campaign a couple of weeks ago. So there's all these different places, and particularly with coasters, if you can partner with the zoo and they can provide those, that's going to make it a big difference. You know?
Or if you wanted to start smaller, I can't remember the name of the company. There's the beer distributor here in Brevard County. And
Florida Beer?
Which?
Florida Beer Company?
Carol, that's it. Yeah, you know, that may be, if, you know, turtles, nobody's going to carry out turtles in Chicago or Philadelphia or New York.
I think the zoo's already done that, though. I think the zoo's already, and we can't speak about the zoo, which we've already met with them. They've worked with Aardvark, they've already spoke about the coasters and the table tents. So they've already kind of that's why the workshop will be important. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. If they're already doing this,
Correct.
jump on in.
Correct.
All right, these are great ideas. Let's go ahead and form this workshop or committee.
Just real quickly before I kind of laid out at the beginning, I can say, for the record, my views on this have not been at all changed by signing up and, disjoining without taking any action. So I don't think I have a conflict from being involved in this, but if anyone feels otherwise, does anyone feel otherwise? Okay. Good. I'll go ahead and second the motion. And I do want to make one quick comment. I just want to follow up and agree with what David said. Personally, I definitely very much agree with the encourage as opposed to impose route on a lot of issues, this one in particular, so that's
Hopefully
what
it
it's
works.
worth. That's my viewpoint on it, and I guess I'm showing my independence in saying that, but, yeah.
Before
We
we,
got a lot of groups involved, and
Yeah.
before we vote, since we have at least one group here that's represented, if you guys were setting some up, we're kind of treading on your territory. If you would be glad to have us do it, because we got the Civic Center and stuff or whatever, it'd be nice before we voted to know that our taking the lead maybe was not going to cause problems.
You guys live in the city?
Nobody else, we didn't know anybody else it was, but if you want to do it, that's fine. Oh, I think it's
What's
The reason I like the coaster so much and what I had sent Jazzy was a fun coaster with a fun thing as opposed to the sea turtle with the straw on his nose. If we want change, it has to be with young people. And we've got to make this cute, and then the young people will go into McDonald's and won't take the straw. So while it's nice to get McDonald's to say, hey, I'm going to only have algae straws or whatever it is, the thing is to get the younger generation to start saying, we don't want this. It isn't good for our environment. I don't need it anyway. So that's my thing with the coasters, is moving this because most of the people we're not going to change that are 30 and over. We're just not. I dig through the trash constantly at work, getting all the recycled stuff. It's the young kids that we're going to change.
I didn't catch your name.
Lori Winnick.
Lori.
Yes.
What is the option if you get a drink at McDonald's and you don't use a straw? How do you drink it? You take the lid off?
You take the lid off.
Okay. Well, the thing is, there's a lot of things, I think these ideas need to be discussed because the shake, or I don't know if it's like a coffee drink or something, a frozen coffee drink, these things have a lid that's like a dome that gives you another third of ingredients to enjoy. And while I don't indulge in any of that, my kids do, and if the lid comes off, then there's going to be a pretty severe mess. So hopefully there's a strategy and an idea of how the drink is still contained in the same manner as it is when you're using a straw.
Well, like I have glass straws that I take with me that
Gotcha.
I use, and some people have metal straws and whatever. And I'm not saying that every situation, the plastic straws do serve a purpose in the hospital and other places. It's just, we go through them like...
Yeah. No, I'm certainly not bringing this up to be against it.
No,
I'm bringing
I
it
think
up
it's
to
all
be
part of it.
the manager of McDonald's is going to want to know what his options would be, and I'm sure families would want to know what their options are going to be. If it's just you got to pop the lid now, I think you'd get a lot of pushback, to be honest with you. The convenience and the packaging of especially a soft drink that is so sticky and sugary and everything else once it gets on something, there's got to be a plan for that. And if we could collectively think of how to take care of that, that'd be useful for them for sure.
Yeah.
Say again?
They provide paper straws and plastic straws.
Sure.
Straw for 10 minutes maybe. They can provide paper straws. I bought a pack, she bought a pack, I bought a pack of 175 paper straws for $5.
Got it.
They can get, and that's reasonable price.
And that's probably my fault that I'm thinking we're getting rid of the straw. But if we're just thinking about different straw options.
The 3 cents.
When I mentioned aardvark straw, that's the ones the zoos tested out, the paper straws. So their goal, from what we talked about before, was that those paper straws, they provide a week's worth, so you get used to them, and then you can purchase them as well, and they will break down. And the other thing, like what we talked about, I want to do the volunteer as well and let everybody get on board volunteering. I've been saying no straw for a long time. Half the time, they still put a straw in the glass.
Yeah.
So it's great to go volunteer, but unless they stop putting them in, it's not going to matter how many times we say that we're going to do it. It's just such a habit.
Yeah.
So eventually, it may be, and that's what these other places, Marco Island, Fort Myers Beach, and Sunrise, have found out that it's not working on a full volunteer thing. I'm all for the volunteer thing, but eventually it may be, to get the last folks in, that you're going to have to move on to the rest of that.
Yeah, let's,
Lori,
we gotta
thank
keep
you, by the
moving
way.
on, so let's,
Thank you.
we got a
Thank you.
motion on the floor,
Motion second,
and
we'll do the roll call. Since we did a public comment on that, I think.
I would love to talk about this
Can
all
we-
night too.
can we
but got
recap
a
what the
lot of
motion is?
other things to,
Okay, so the motion is to create a workshop for plastic straws and plastic straw awareness and coasters, and a message to reduce plastic pollution through plastic straws with additional
Straw alternatives.
straw alternatives, with the aforementioned organizations ranging from the zoo to Clean Energy Boulevard to Surfrider to Ocean Conservation and
Sea Turtle Conservancy.
Conservancy.
So it's a summit, just like we had.
It's a summit. It's not a workshop. It's a summit.
Well, it'd be great to have restaurant groups and, people from, business community who are going to be affected by it too. Basically, we're moving to discuss more at a specific time and place. It's
Yeah,
not
we'll
right
do-
now.
But I think in this workshop, we're talking about the people who are actually going to be putting the message out. So it would be,
Well, the purpose of the workshop, from what I understand, is going to be to go off and make some decisions on what, and bring it back to the board so that we can vote on it, whether it be,
on what message?
whether it be, that we're going to fund the purchase of coasters, or we're going to ask the city to fund the purchase of coasters, or whether we're going to,
It's going to be a big summit about a bunch of issues, it sounds like, because,
yeah.
Yeah,
and
there's a-
there's a lot of different ways you can go with this.
Right.
But,
Let's vote.
What I'm hearing is that maybe it wouldn't hurt to have a few business people, and it sounds like somebody from Long Doggers, not necessarily the McDonald's and things, but somebody that's already walking the talk a little bit.
I would say get one that's walking the talk and one that's not.
Yeah.
And then maybe, Little Dos Amigos, or maybe McDonald's, like a
Put it
corporate.
on the fence.
Yeah, maybe get
Okay.
3 of them. I don't know.
Let's do a roll call.
Okay, yeah, we got to keep moving.
John Fergus.
Yes.
Okay. David Vigliotti. Yes. Matt White.
Yes.
Nick Imberno.
Yes.
Nick, am I saying your last name right?
Absolutely.
Stephen Gilliam.
Yes.
And then we'll go back to the second, which was Mark Boyd.
yes,
And then Christopher Reed
yes.
and David Floyd.
Yes.
Did I get everybody? Okay, good.
Yes.
Okay. To create a plastic coalition summit / workshop.
Sweet.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we already had public comment on that, and I'd rather not have any more unless somebody has something dire they need to say. But so let's move on to the next action item, which is discuss, take action on fluoride in the water supply.
Okay, so I'll keep this pretty short. When we were creating the sustainability board, I was putting together a list of what I'd like, all of us to approach. Fluoride was an issue that I thought was something we should. About 70% of the U.S. right now puts fluoride in their water. It's actually a industrial waste, and the World Health Organization has published a study essentially showing that there's no correlation between fluoride and tooth decay. In fact, us even just putting 70% of the population being under fluoride, that's more than any other country in the world, or all the other countries combined. And we're actually creating more tooth decay here than anywhere else. And
With fluoride?
so, yeah, well, you
Creating tooth decay with
you
fluoride?
can't connect it to fluoride. I'm just saying we have more tooth decay here, even with far more fluoride in our water than anywhere else in the world combined.
Where do you get that stat?
The World Health Organization.
The United States has more tooth decay
Correct.
than any other place in the world.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm
Oh, okay.
saying we're growing at a faster rate collectively. Yes, we are, even with the amount of fluoride we're putting in our water. And that's not even getting into the fact that fluoride's actually a neurochemical. It actually is degenerative, and also the World Health Organization says that children should not be ingesting it, yet we are literally putting it in our water supply. Western Europe does not, 97% of Europe does not put fluoride in their water because it's an actual drug, and they choose not to put drugs in their water. This is all there for everyone to look into. I'm actually going to be providing an email with a lot of different links, including some science peer-reviewed studies from some of the most well-respected journals. This stuff is nothing new. A lot of areas are actually getting rid of it, not on the health basis, but actually the monetary basis. They now have the science showing that it's not benefiting us, yet we're spending millions of dollars putting it in our water. So they're actually removing it just on the basis of saving money. But there is a lot of links of thyroid damage and many other things that fluoride can actually cause. And this was originally tabled, even though I had this discussion with Courtney and she understood it all. She thought there wasn't necessarily the best thing to approach first with the Sustainability Board. But recently there has been some community support for this as well. And she felt that I should bring this back to the table, move forward with putting together a well thought out position, and then essentially moving to get the council to get behind removing fluoride from Brevard's water.
So this to me seems like it might be something good to try to get support from some of the other sustainability boards, if that's.
So that's not what I'm
we want to
asking
do.
here this evening. I'm asking here this evening for us to choose to move forward with putting together a documented position on this.
And present it to
and
council.
then present it to council.
I think that's a good approach.
Why not?
Can we maybe establish what the criteria of well put together, or whatever it was that you just said, is? I think it's important that if we're thinking we're going to put something together that we're going to run with, we have to have some criteria that we're going to, with endpoints that we're going to try to meet.
Can you help us with that? Because I know, yeah.
Linda Palmisano. I live on Amherst Circle here in Satellite Beach. So I've just spent the last several months doing nothing but research on this topic. And in what I presented last night, I presented exactly what Dylan was saying.
Oh, you went to a council meeting?
I went to the City of Melbourne Council meeting because we're talking about taking fluoride out of Brevard County, but there's the City of Melbourne is responsible for one area.
Right.
Cocoa has a water district, Palm Bay, West Melbourne. So we can start with one at a time. Satellite Beach, of course, is covered under the City of Melbourne, and that's what, where I started. I started this with a thyroid problem myself, and I didn't want to take any medication. I try not to take any prescription at all, and that started research, and this has just gone and gone. But last night, I specifically gave the charts about the World Health Organization. There's no discernible difference. You can't tell a difference, and in the chart, I actually brought some of my notes from last night. I mean, we're way down the list. The United States is way down the list. And the ones that are at the top of the list as far as having the best rates, I don't know how to say this right, but the indicator is DMFT. It's decayed, missing, and filled teeth. That's the World Health Organization's indicator. The countries that are doing exceptionally well are not fluoridated at all. Some European countries fluoridate salt, like we put iodine in salt, but you can choose to use that salt or buy something, something different. We don't have a choice here. There's no informed consent. There's no control of dose and dosage. Everything he said. I would love to help with this because I had actually just dropped in and met with Courtney just to let her know what I was doing, and we really felt like it sounds bad to say, but that we might get more traction, if you will, by looking at the environmental aspects and the human health aspects. Because the City of Melbourne, the city manager's position is that as long as the ADA and CDC support fluoridation, he will continue to support it himself.
So they still support it?
Although there was some lively debate, I haven't got the DVD yet, but there was some lively debate. I was so happy to see there's one councilwoman who's strictly against fluoridation. And the cost is approximately $53,000 a year for hydrofluorosilicic acid. And I was able to get the safety data sheet from their, just from where we buy it from, is Harcross Chemicals in Kansas City. It's just incredibly highly toxic. And even Mr. McNeese, who's the city manager of Melbourne last night, it turns out he's got a degree in chemistry. And he acknowledged it's highly toxic, it's highly corrosive. You know, in this, it tells you how long it takes for a monkey to die, a guinea pig, a rat, and a mouse. And
At what dosages, though? At what dosages, because water is highly toxic.
Well, it's all in there. I understand what you're saying.
Pure water is highly toxic.
I understand
that. You
that.
can die from too much water.
Yes. And there's chloramine in our water. There's other toxic things in our water. And when they put this in, then they have to adjust pH because this is an acid.
And so why did they put that fluoride in our water?
It's a cheap way to fluoridate the water. Hydrofluorosilicic acid is a toxic byproduct of the phosphate mining industry. The fumes were going up the smokestacks, and it was killing the local cattle, and it was wiping out the orange groves in Florida. Florida has the most production of phosphate than I believe any other state in the nation. And so they found if they sprayed water on it, they could not only control the emission, but it created this product called hydrofluorosilicic acid that has a fluorine ion in it. So you get this compound that has fluoride. It's not, people will tell you that fluoride's naturally occurring in groundwater. That's calcium fluoride. And the dental products that are pharmaceutical grade that you'll get in your toothpaste and your dental rinses and whatever, your treatment at the dentist, that's sodium fluoride. What they're putting in our water is hydrofluorosilicic acid. And like I said, it's just a chemical waste product. And Courtney asked me if municipalities didn't buy it, what would they do? They would have to pay to have it disposed of as a hazardous waste product. Yep. So that is what they're putting in our water. And now, and so I tried last night to stay on point. The ADA has come out now, and you can have all the information. It's on their website. They are warning against allowing infants and children up to 8 years old to ingest fluoridated water because it causes what's called dental fluorosis, a discoloration or pitting of the teeth. So what was put in place starting in the 1940s and 50s to, somehow protect teeth and make teeth more healthy is actually doing a lot of damage to teeth. And this peer-reviewed study that I think Dylan was referring to, it was in September, that they found out that babies in the uterus that are being exposed to fluoride at nominal parts per million rates, which would be typical in municipal water systems, it affects their IQ. It drops them like 5 points of IQ if they're exposed in the uterus. They're finding out that fluoride is a neurotoxin. They're linking it now to like ADHD and hyperactivity and antisocial behavior. I mean, you have to look at what's going on in our civilization. I mean, this all started with me having a hypothyroid condition. And all four of my relatives were all, we go from like 54 to 84. All four of my female relatives in my family have been diagnosed with hypothyroidism. I will ask this panel what they think is the most prescribed medication in the United States.
Opioids,
what is it? Opioids are coming on strong. But in life, I ask nurses, antibiotics, antidepressants, whatever, cholesterol medication. The number one prescribed medication in the United States is Synthroid, because and it affects females 5 to 8 times more than males for whatever reason there is. We're all different. But
how do you spell that?
Synthroid, Synthroid. Yes, there are more people getting prescriptions for Synthroid than any other prescription in the United States. Are you on it? Yeah, and you're very young. I mean, and not only that, fluoride accumulates. The kidney can only get rid of about 50% of the fluoride we intake, so the rest is just stored in our bones and our pineal gland. If you're having trouble sleeping at night,
I wasn't going to say it, but yes.
The pineal gland is what makes melatonin, which, allows you to fall asleep. So if anybody here is having trouble falling asleep at night, your pineal gland may be calcified and not producing the melatonin. I mean, I could talk for hours, and I know I can't do that. I would love to help offline in any way I can, but what I am going to ask this panel is the City of Melbourne may act on this fairly quickly because we've got them informed now. But they're not all in agreement, and the one councilwoman is asking for there to be agenda item fairly soon. I would think in the next month or so, and they'll probably take it to a vote because they want to quote get this behind them. What they were talking about last night. If I could get panels like this just to write a letter, an email, or something, just somehow saying we have concerns, even nothing more than that.
Well, we were going to do, potentially what I was hoping was the council would actually do a resolution after we actually do proper research and present our case to them. But that's what I'm trying to move tonight, is that we actually build that information up, present it to council, and they do a resolution standing behind getting rid of fluoride in our water system.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Absolutely.
Is it your contention that fluoride has no benefit to teeth health?
That is my contention, and that what I understand, the CDC now has come out and said that the primary benefit of fluoride is topical, not systemic, not by ingestion. They have come out and said that. The ADA clearly warns on their website against, they recommend breastfeeding because breast milk has 250 times less, and not 1 or 2 times, 250 times less. No matter how much the mother takes in of fluoride, it doesn't. That's one thing. It's never passed through the milk. So that's nature's way of protecting a child. Fluoride is not a what am I trying to say? A nutrient to the body. There's no human organ that uses fluoride. We could go the whole rest of our life and never get another drop of fluoride, and we would be fine. It's not a nutrient for the human. It's not like vitamin C or iron or magnesium or any of those things.
So why does the ADA continue to support it?
I honestly believe that there's 3 things. It's either fear of embarrassment because they've supported this for so long. It's fear of loss of public trust, again, because they've pushed this for so long. Or it's a fear of legal liability. The first council meeting I went to, there were attorneys that came that they are representing municipalities all throughout the state of Florida and other states to recover costs that municipalities are incurring because of the opioid crisis. And that's what got me started on my research of what's the most prescribed medication. And then when it was Synthroid, it really wasn't a surprise to me because it is a known, fluoride was used in Europe in the 1950s and 60s for hyperthyroidism because it suppresses thyroid function. So you give that to a normal person, especially a woman, and it's suppressing it even further, and then it's requiring medication. And Synthroid, sometimes some of these things are hard to get off of, because then your thyroid becomes dependent on it, and it's not working as it should.
You did say that the fluoride that's put in the water is different than the fluoride that is in toothpaste.
Yes, the fluoride in toothpaste is a pharmaceutical-grade sodium fluoride. And there's a lot of people that are concerned about this stuff coming out of the smokestack that it could possibly have arsenic and barium in it. Lead, too. So arsenic, lead, heavy metals, and barium, which is a radioactive element. And that could be part of what's causing the neurotoxic effects that we're seeing, especially in young people. There's a Harvard study that they showed that it increases the chance of bone cancer in adolescent males only, probably because of the large growth spurt during adolescent times. Boys can grow 5 or 6 inches a year, and this fluoride gets stored in the bones. You'll find that no one's debating that. That's a fact. And they believe now, because it actually makes bones more brittle, that's why you're seeing a higher rate of hip fractures and stuff in elderly. They started this ordinance in 1966. So, I'm a native of Satellite Beach, born and raised here. So I was 4 years old in 1966 when they started fluoridating the water.
I will add, too, that I think aside from Nick, I have the youngest children-ish and Chris.
Mm-hmm.
So if you all go, this is a new topic to me, so I'm hardly an expert on it, but if you go to Publix and you walk down the water aisle, they do have a specific kind of like nursery water.
And it's fluoridated.
Says that, oh, it is? Mm-hmm. I was thinking it was fluoride-free.
I bet you check. I mean, because
Low levels, but it is fluorinated.
Yeah, and I called a friend today, I was talking to her, and she goes, well, I'm drinking bottled water. I go, take a look at it, because of course, whatever municipality it's bottled at, it's whatever's in the water. And she said spring water. She says, okay. I said, oh, well, it should be okay. And she picks it up and reads it. It's been fluoridated. It's spring water that they've added fluoride to. Now, maybe it's sodium fluoride, because what's put in our water system is hydrofluorosilicic acid, which is a toxic waste product from this phosphate industry.
I have one quick question, real quickly. First of all, I'd like to thank you for all of the research that you've done. Did you say it's $50,000 annually?
It's about $53,000. They buy about approximately 120 tons. It's somewhat on a demand basis, and with our, population, I just came from the meeting across the hall. I mean, Brevard County and the Melbourne area is going great guns with population. So that'll just mean more water that they have to produce, and so they'll have to buy more chemical, I assume. I don't really understand the mechanism of how it's applied and monitored. The CDC, or I think the EPA has dropped what they recommend from 0.7 to 1.2 parts per million or something like that. And I was going to ask the city if they could give me, because the chemicals is only part of the cost. There's the manpower to, put the stuff in every day, monitor it, make sure the parts per million dollars within the range and all like that. I mean, they have to wear hazmat type equipment to put it in. I mean, it is a lethal, highly toxic product.
I appreciate you bringing this all to our attention, and I, Nicholas and Bordoni, would like to motion our panel to hear a more formal presentation from our guest on this topic of fluoride.
Second. Third.
Could I ask a question real quick?
Second one?
I'm sorry. Could I just ask a question? Is there other places in the country or movements that are trying to fight this also?
Yeah. Yes, and I'm remiss in getting Ms. Barker the information, Mrs. Barker, but there's 14 communities in the state of Florida that have rejected fluoridation since 1990. Probably the best source of information online.
Does that mean that they succeeded in getting the municipalities to stop fluorinating?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's an uphill battle, from what I understand. I've been getting some advice from a group called Moms Against Fluoridation. There's also it's not a class action lawsuit, it's a lawsuit by this Fluoride Action Network, Moms Against Fluoridation, and some other, there's the Environmental Working Group, and some other things that are now suing the EPA, basically over the study that was done in the fall that showed the lowering of the IQ from the babies in the uterus. And it's not the Safe Water Drinking Act they're using, but it's another chemical safety act that the EPA has. And the EPA's tried twice in December and January to have it thrown out of court, and they lost. So it's proceeding through court. They have a fundraising event going on right now. It's fluoridealert.org is the name of their website, to get the money they need to fight this lawsuit. And it could be made illegal throughout the United States, but this lawsuit could take several years, and, we don't know. But the only thing I was asking, and I know this is a big ask, but just if someone would be willing or could communicate to either the city manager, the mayor, the council, that this body is looking into it, it would mean a lot. Because right now, it's me and my husband speaking out. And it really did stir a lot of conversation among the council members last night. Some for, some against. And it's going to take an uphill battle. But just if they knew, and I just mentioned I was beginning to talk to other local municipalities, that's all I said, about the concerns, especially as it had to do with the water drain off into the lagoon.
So we have a motion on the floor to basically have her give a more formal presentation?
I would like us to actually support this or move forward with compiling something and get council involved in,
the motion was for the presentation, though. We have
Well,
a different motion for that.
Yeah, but I'm just saying what I originally intended was a little bit different than her giving another presentation to us.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Go ahead.
I just want to voice, I guess, a concern or a reservation. And look, I've got an 8-month-old, so I've got a young child. I'm anything that could potentially affect health. And I mean, this is a very complex scientific issue from what I'm hearing, about which there is not I don't think overall consensus, if it's still, if the CDC is still taking a position that would be potentially opposed to what you're asking this board to take. I think that when we're looking at statistics in isolation, there can be, independent factors and anecdotal evidence. I mean, and just in this issue in particular, my mom grew up in England when she was young. She moved to the States. She's had horrible teeth her whole life. She always, attributed that to there not being fluoride in the water. I'm 35 years old, never had a cavity. That might be a total, fluke, but it might not be. I don't have scientific training. I'm not here to say definitively at my first meeting this is beyond the scope of this board, but to me this is a very, very complex issue that may be beyond the scope of this board. That's my, and not to say that you're wrong or right, because I don't know, but it's just to me a very, very complex issue and not something that's straightforward in terms of what the goal is to me, let alone how we get there. That's my piece on it.
That's a good point.
One thing I want to say to you, I've literally got hundreds of hours of research into this, and I'm not a scientist. My college degree is in computer science, so I'm very much into logic because we had to take a lot of classes in logic. But from one citizen of the area to another that's got young children, I'm saying this with a sincere heart. Use a good quality water filter. You need to get fluoride and chloramines. I'm saying this in all sincerity. I mean, I've protected my families. That's what, my family right now is protected. I'm protected as much as we can. And my swimming pool, I still have to fill and top with municipal water. But I'm saying this in all sincerity to all of you here. Get some good water filters if you don't already have them.
Reverse osmosis filter?
Reverse osmosis and distilled are the best ways. There are some companies that have, Berkey is another one that has a fluoride filter, but it's very hard to get out, like your Brita and some of, whatever you've got on maybe your refrigerator, then inline, is most likely not taking those things out. And I say this in all sincerity after doing all this.
Your sincerity is apparent and appreciated. I absolutely.
And I'd be behind that. I mean, I've lived here my whole life. My teeth are, fluoride never helped my teeth. I'll just say that.
Well,
and also the women in my family have all had thyroid issues, so I'm not saying I'd easily be swayed, but I wouldn't doubt.
I have literally 23 pages right now or so of just website links, and I presented to the board. I mean, Time magazine came out with an article that says the only reason for tooth decay is sugar. So, and I mean, I could go on and on, but in the back in the 1800s, maybe people had 2 pounds of sugar a year. We've just been talking about McDonald's. Right now, they estimate the average person consumes between 150 and 160 pounds of sugar a year versus 2 to 3 pounds in the mid 1800s. So our society's got some health issues, but sugar causes dental decay. But in general, all the decay rates are going down. The World Health Organization, there is no discernible difference between fluoridated and non-fluoridated areas. I would be glad, if someone wants to give me email address, and I promise not to overload, just, whatever. I did a full,
why don't we do that, rather than have you come back out.
We'll take a vote on that motion since it's been presented.
And the motion is to get a more thorough presentation on this topic.
Absolutely. That is
Great.
exactly the motion.
Perfect.
But who's doing the presentation, her? Or?
I would
Can you work together? Can you work together on it?
No, but I'm just trying to be clear. Are you saying that we're putting together a presentation?
I'm saying that we go do our research.
Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to hear.
We kind of take bits and, bits of what you've presented, and I'd be happy to work with you and provide you with
Perfect.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And come up with, with just kind of where we're at, what we can do, and hopefully where we'd like to be, something.
And when you present that to council, depending on the presentation, is that where this is going?
I don't know that you want to do that without the board.
Yeah.
We need to vote on it.
Right. Sure.
And I would suggest.
This one is just the 28th presentation.
Okay.
Yes.
To be brought back before this board.
But she has offered to email to us. Why not give her Julie's address? She emails it to Julie. Julie blasts the board, and then, at least then we can start poking around Where we go from there, I'm not sure. It seems unfair to make her make a presentation. You've been playing with it too, right? Or the two of you could work together or
I
something?
would be glad to, yeah, absolutely. And I think it might be,
Nick volunteered as well, so I definitely, if
But
you're interested in this topic.
Sure.
I don't want to make you have to come out and give like a formal presentation.
Oh, she'd be happy to.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of information
Okay.
stuff down in here,
Well,
but I would be glad, and but my only thought is, I mean, the very first night I spoke at the City of Melbourne Council meeting, I really felt like the city manager there just kind of wanted to, make me go away. And he asked for the most recent studies, and I've been emailing him, and he said last night, to quote him, he didn't have a dog in the fight. He wasn't pro or against fluoridation. And this is a blessing for him, but he lives on a property where he has a private water well, and he was straightforward with me about it. So at his home, he just says he drinks it right out of the ground. He's got a wonderful private water well, but we don't have that option here. I don't think we can, if we had enough money to go 500 foot down, I'm not sure we could get a permit for a private well.
When you shower, it absorbs through your
I have a
skin.
filter on my shower too.
Why, I suggest
But yeah.
maybe
yes.
we modify the motion that whoever wants to works together to put together what they would propose to be the briefing to go to council. And then if it's presented to us, then all we need to do is say, thumbs up, thumbs down, or we really want to see something changed. That gives us direct action
Okay, so
that can go to
motion was made
council.
by Nick originally. Nick, you agree with that adjustment?
I do. I'll second his motion. Are you motioning
Well,
for that,
and
or-
basically, Robert's rules is that,
Yeah, help me on that.
who is it? One of the two, Courtney, maybe you can guide this.
I don't think you need an amendment to the motion. I think we understand what you
Yeah.
all want. So we'll bring back a presentation, and Dylan can work with Linda and Nick to put that together. And the staff will put together a cover staff report with some opposing data so you can have the full picture. And we'll go ahead and put together a possible resolution for you if you so fit to pass at your next meeting, so you don't have to wait for a whole nother meeting.
Yeah.
If that's something you want to do.
Yeah, that was my intent, was if there's a package, this board can say, send it to council and we're done.
Do you still second that motion, Matt?
Second.
Seconded by Matt, so roll call. I think we can forgo public comment because we've done that. John Fergus?
Yes.
Yes. David Bigliotti?
Yes.
Okay. Christopher Reed?
Yes.
Stephen Killian?
Yes.
Mark Boyd?
Yes.
Okay. And then seconded by Matt White?
Yep.
Nick Imrenon?
Yes.
And Dave Floyd?
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes.
Okay, so, that was very informative. I really appreciate you coming out, and it sounds like you're,
Really appreciate your service.
yeah, we love having people like you come out and bring these things to our attention that we may not be aware of. Okay, so moving on, the next item is project updates from board members / brainstorm.
Motion to skip?
Second.
On for a second.
Seconded by Motion by Matt Flurry, seconded by Christopher Reed. Public comment? Oh, sorry, Matt. Sorry. Oh, my God. Good.
What happened?
You trying to run my meeting?
No.
It's all right. So, I guess we don't want to talk about that, that's fine. You can do that next.
Your next meeting, you're going to have a long agenda item, so you might want to.
Yeah, okay. The agenda items for next meeting? We already have, does anybody, or do we have a motion on the floor?
We did. We have a
Oh,
motion
okay.
by Matt White to skip agenda item number 8.
I don't,
Seconded by Christopher Reed.
okay. I don't know if you need a motion to do that, but.
Does that work?
You could do it by consensus.
Well, if you have a motion on the floor, you might as well vote.
All right, so we're going to vote on that motion to skip agenda item number 8. Sean Curtis,
Yeah.
David Bigliotti,
Yes.
Nick Immernold,
Yes.
Stephen Gilliam,
Yes.
Mark Boyd,
Yes.
and David Floyd.
Yes.
In the future, you can, when you're doing an administrative task, you can vote by consensus, so you don't have to roll call it. You can just say all in favor. And so on.
Or as a chair, I can
You can
move.
do by consensus. It's an administrative task.
Okay. All right, agenda items for the next meeting.
I think we have a couple already. Sounds like we're going to talk about straws, we're going to talk about fluoridated straws.
Fluoridated straws, is that?
So,
Straws are going to a workshop, right?
yeah, the straws are going to a workshop.
Workshop.
So how soon can we get that workshop?
I'm reaching out to everybody already.
Okay.
That's on staff.
So Julie can set up a quick meeting and,
Once I get a date, I'll bring it back to,
maybe we
to
can have
that
that.
via email.
Okay, yeah, I guess if we get it done before the next meeting, then we'll put it on the agenda. Is there anything else anybody wants to add as an agenda item?
Did we finish the composting?
Composting is going back on the agenda for next meeting.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
What about dark skies?
We done our,
Is there anything to discuss on that, or are we?
You guys are having a class or something.
oh, so that workshop has been postponed and rescheduled to the 9th because tomorrow is already triple booked with events here and across the hall. And to keep on with the trend of video recording presentations, that has been shifted, and the presenter, Nicole Perna from Ferry Island Center, has agreed to move it to the 9th. So I canceled it on the calendar, and it has been rescheduled on the city calendar, as well as Facebook and Eventbrite. So the rescheduled version of that workshop is available and out in social media and on the city website as well. But there we'll be discussing dark skies in more detail and how it relates to Central West.
Okay. All right, so moving on to the next item, adoption of minutes from March 28th, 2018.
Motion.
Need a motion?
A second.
Matt motion to adopt the minutes,
Now I motion.
and David Bigliotti seconded.
Is this administrative? Consensus? Vote?
No.
So we have to vote for this one.
Yeah, we have to vote.
We have to vote for this finish meeting, right? We can't do it by consensus.
That's administrative.
Okay.
So if
All in
it's like
favor?
if it's like a subject matter and you're waiting to do something in the community or, you know, that you would have to roll call. But something like we're going to postpone a meeting or
All
we're going to
favor?
that's called an administrative.
Adoption of the meeting.
It's like procedural versus substantive in a case, yeah.
Really, because we've been voting on
We've
that.
been voting on that, but we can make it.
Yeah, I remember we voted for it.
Aye.
That's all right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Ayes have it.
Okay, yeah, so one more thing before we adjourn, there is a thing going on at Surfside this weekend, the backyard barbecue. If anybody has any plants to donate, bring them to the front office. I'm going to bring some stuff.
Yeah, I got some stuff related by farm plants.
Yeah, if you got any native plants that you
Oh,
can,
you can have it.
that would be great.
You wrote on it. You want it.
All right.
Just native plants?
You guys grab your name tags?
Doesn't have to be native.
Grab your name tags and bring them back up here, too.
Okay, meeting adjourned.
I'd like to find one, but keep it. You wrote on it.
I'm trying to make it easier for you by getting everyone to bring their name tags up.
Marco Island,
Oh, that works.
Minor,
By.
complex stuff.
Yeah, see you tomorrow.
There you go, man. Thank you.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you, Chris.
Amazing.
How's everything in the house going?